So we live together.
Yep.
We watch football together.
Yep.
We talk about football together.
Yep.
Why don't we just start a podcast?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show that finally has a name. After weeks of deliberating over what we should title this podcast, we went to you guys, the audience, and they came up with a name that me and Cam really enjoyed. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the eye test. What do you think, Cam? You happy with that name?
The eye, man. I mean, I think we relate. You know what I mean? We always try and say people should watch football more than just read football. You know what I mean? So I think that's perfect. The perfect thing for us. What do you think?
I like it, man. The eye test. The eye test powered by VR Football. Of course, if you're coming from there, welcome. If you're seeing our stuff on their different platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, all that good stuff, Twitter, hey, BR. That's where it's at. But today,
Yes.
I wanted to kind of highlight one thing that I noticed from the weekend more than anything. Obviously, we had the big so-called title decider between City and Liverpool, and it definitely lived up to the billing. Amazing game of football to watch as a neutral. Liverpool won, Man City won. But that second half in particular, there was one performer that really stood out to me. In a game where, like, we talk about City and Liverpool, so often it's determined by the midfield battle. And we have maybe the best defensive midfielder in the world this year in Rodri. We have a guy in Phil Foden who's being billed as a potential PFA Player of the Year contender. McAllister has had a great season. But there was one guy that, it's crazy, a year ago, probably no one even knew his name. And that's Wataru Endo. And a lot of the buzz after the game, because he played so brilliantly, I think got the better of De Bruyne a few times, looked better than Rodri at times. He really took a hold of that game, was, wow, what a piece of business from Liverpool. What a bit of coaching from Jurgen Klopp, and what a player Wataru Endo is. And before I go into any of that, I think Liverpool's scouting team deserves massive, massive plaudits.
I fully agree. I mean, you look at Liverpool have done this though. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool have done this, and when it's happened, we've praised, Michael Edwards, we've played Julian Ward, we've praised a lot of their stuff. But I think one thing that this shows is that no matter who you give to like a Jurgen Klopp, he will get the best out of them. And okay, maybe there might be some players that I've missed out that maybe they haven't got the best out of, but I think when it makes sense, Klopp will make it genius. You know what I mean? Like when it just makes sense. Listen, we need a DM. Endo's in there. Genius. Listen, we need a left back. Boom. Sometimes, the only times I've seen that maybe Klopp might get it a little bit is when you're trying to add the depth. Gravenberch, I think we'll see, but Gravenberch, not the greatest signing. You can argue about Thiago's injury record and stuff, but for me, those are like depth signings. I think when it makes sense and Liverpool need something, Klopp will get that signing, right? And it just shows, again, the scouting, as you mentioned, but I think, again, the key thing here as well is Jurgen Klopp, but we have to give massive, in a way, right? I think everybody has to kind of hold their hands up and be like, listen, Endo, we all owe you an apology. Yeah. Because
we weren't familiar with his game. It's as simple as that, bro.
Facts. We were not familiar with his game because you look at him. Listen, we all watched him in the World Cup with Japan, and he was a good player. But Japan, they always have these kind of techie, short, decent players, right? So you're just thinking, oh, okay, that's just Japan on the international stage. No one's going to sign these guys. And when you think that Liverpool were chasing Caicedo all summer,
that's the big one.
115 million. We all remember that graphic. Jude, Enzo, and Caicedo, like some army of midfield. And when none of them came to Liverpool, everybody was just in tears laughing at Liverpool. And then they bring in Endo. People are thinking, who's this guy?
I compared him to Kim Källström. I said, this is their Kim Källström signing.
There we go. There we go. People were like, what is this Endo? Ha ha ha. Everyone's laughing. And he's gone on to be arguably pound for pound the signing of the season. And I'm talking, of course, you've got on a superior level, you've got Declan Rice, and then you've got Cole Palmer has been a great signing and stuff. But they were big money signings. 40 million is still a big signing. 105 million for Deckers.
Speaks for itself.
But then you look at Endo, a cheap 16 million pound signing, comes through the back door. Klopp says to him, I really need you. And I even remember tweeting saying, why did Klopp lie to him like this? Because he ain't played in ages. But maybe he'll just get acclimatized. Yeah. And since then, I mean, this guy is running midfields, man.
I think really the Caicedo thing is kind of the biggest point that I want to kind of go at, because all throughout the summer, it wasn't just Caicedo that Liverpool were after. He was a big one, but if you remember, they were after Doucouré as well from Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace were putting an £80 million price tag on Doucouré. And I looked at that situation, and I've kind of had this thing for a lot of players. I've brought it up for specific situations, but we'll go Doucouré, for example. Doucouré was quoted for £80 million this summer. The year before that, Crystal Palace bought him for $20 million. The year before that, none of us even knew who he was. So what happened in those 2 years to make him go from a relative unknown in Ligue 1 to now an £80 million player? We even look at Caicedo. He's the big one. He was £115 million this summer. A year before that, let's say you could have bought him from Brighton for $60 million. A year before that, he was playing in Ecuador, and it was between United and Brighton to buy him for, I think, £5 million. One thing that I've really taken from this Endo situation is that sometimes I think as football fans, and especially as Premier League fans, we put too much stock in what players do in the Premier League and the form they display there. Because, okay, while it's important to show that you can make the step up, of course, the reality is Endo is not a miles different player than he was at Stuttgart, and I can't prove it, but I'd have to imagine he's been at Stuttgart for a number of years now. He's probably been the same player for a few years. Yeah. Why did it take just now for a club to take a chance on him? Caicedo, if you had bought him a few years ago, you would have saved £80 million. Doucouré, similar if you had bought him this year. Onana at Everton is another great example. He's probably going to go for £70 million right now. A few years ago, Everton got him from Lille for nothing. Yeah. These players didn't just develop magically. Painha, similar situation. Do we as football, I mean, it's not really our job as fans, but do the clubs we support and the infrastructures and the CEOs and the scouts really need to do their due diligence more when looking for these players to avoid having to pay 60, 70 million pound, which is really because of a Premier League premium, and really look for profiles rather than hype and form that they show on the big stage?
I think that's the issue with big teams. I think the thing about big teams, right, is what big teams want to do is avoid the development stage, because the big teams, unless you're like 17 years old, 18 years old, little wonder kid or something, they'll take their time on that development. They don't mind that. But what big teams want to avoid is a player coming into the team and taking 1 year, 2 years to settle in. Now, Endo's not done that. He's age 31. Anyway.
He's 31.
But what happens is teams want to see, because listen, when you play for a big team, as much as it is about your ability, it's about your mentality as well. It's about, can you mentally handle going to a team of this level? So a lot of the times teams will look at, I don't know, there's a 23-year-old decent player, but he's been at Fiorentina for 3-4 years. They're just thinking, can he make that step up to a Manchester United, to a Liverpool, to an Arsenal, whatever? They wait and see if that guy gets signed for, as you can say, a Premier League club, a Brighton or whatever, and see, oh, he can play Premier level. Okay, here we go. We're going to go in for him. But all of a sudden, you waiting for that move and that year
cost you 80 million.
Has gone premium. A good example is right now. Look at the Manchester United situation, right? We have a player in Ahmad, yeah, who Manchester United signed, didn't really have a plan for him, signed him, didn't want to do the development stage, in a way kind of like, what should we do? Threw him off on loan to 2 loans, right? He went off to Sunderland, was the Championship Fans Player of the Year. Still in the team now, not getting any minutes. He's played 27 minutes or whatever it is, right? Not getting any minutes. But then you look at Lyés, who did the exact same thing in the Championship that Ahmad did. Man United now want to sign him for 50 million plus. But then you have Ahmad right there, where you guys did skip the line. You did forget that development stage, and you're not utilizing it. So it is weird how football clubs work. Like, it is, you got to actually think about it. Like, you literally have a similar level talent in Lyés and Ahmad doing the same things, but because one is doing it already in the Prem, and you want to skip that development phase,
you're gonna go pay 80 million.
You're gonna go and pay 70 million for Lyés, and then let Ahmad go through the back door. For me, I just think big clubs lack that understanding that there is going to be a process where people are going to need to adapt, and they want to skip that. And that's why players like Endos and these guys go through the back door.
Because realistically, I sometimes look at the way we talk about players, and when we speak about who's better between this guy and this guy, it's oftentimes form, and it's oftentimes stuff like GA or like how many. And I always say, right, like goals and assists, it's important. I'm not going to ever question that. Goals are the currency of football. You win games by keeping them out and by scoring them. But GA is really circumstantial. And I say that by saying, like, the amount of goals you score depends on the amount of positions you get on a football pitch. And the amount of the positions that you take on a football pitch largely are tactical. And largely it depends on the team you're playing for, the coach you're playing for, the system you're playing in. So, for example, Sadio Mane went to Liverpool a few years ago. And all of a sudden, his numbers just shot up. He was doing decent numbers at Southampton. But at Liverpool, similar to Salah as well, their output just skyrocketed. Now, that doesn't mean that under Klopp, they just learned how to finish or they learned how to score more goals. But the system that they were in
put them in better
positions to then get the most out of their skill set. My whole thing is Sadio Mane the only player on the planet that could have gone and done that at Liverpool? Like, if they had decided to go scout a different winger at a different team, could he have also made that Sadio Mane jump up? My thing is yes. And I don't want to say Mane is fortunate to be the one that Klopp selected because he did his thing at Southampton.
Player.
But I think sometimes people don't really like look at it with nuance in that footballers are not people that you can just like. Coaches don't mold footballers. They already are who they are. And you can use the attributes and the skills that they have to then put it into your system to then get the most out of them. But Mane was who he was before Liverpool, bro. Like, if he had gone to United, for example, it could have been completely different. But the core principles that Mane had, the core skill set that he had, is not really something that he discovered at Liverpool.
The thing is, like, you know what? Football is all about opportunity, right? It's all about opportunity. It's about timing. These type of things come in. Circumstance. It's very circumstantial. One thing can change the next thing. It's all a domino effect as well. So I always look at it, for example, you look at James McAtee, at Sheffield United, and you look at Cole Palmer at Man City. You talk to Man City fans if you want, or if there is City fans watching or football fans that know, in the academy, you can argue James McAtee had more hype than Cole Palmer. James McAtee's a fantastic player, like fantastic talent, should I say. Cole Palmer was thinking about potentially going to Burnley. Chelsea end up coming in, taking him, and now he's one of the signings of the season. McAtee didn't have a Chelsea coming for him, went to Sheffield United, and he's playing for one of the worst teams we've ever seen in England, and nobody's talking about him. But talent, the level, it shouldn't discourage somebody from thinking, well, I saw what McAtee was doing. He was on a similar level to Palmer. You know what, let me grab him at a higher level. Not saying Man United go grab him, but a Palace or let's take a punt on this guy and see what we can do. But this is what I'm trying to say is that it's all about opportunity. And it's weird because if I was turning around and say now, Palmer's not better than McAtee, people will think I'm crazy. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is, it's fine margin at the elite level. So when we're saying Endo, or when we're saying there's only this DM in the world, there's only these players on. For example, even me, sometimes I'm like, man, we have just let a monumental signing in Declan Rice end up at Arsenal. Who is there out there? There's only Rodri, there's only Rice. Bro, there's probably somebody else. Do you know what I'm coming? The gap at the elite level isn't as big as people think.
Definitely not, bro.
And this is why, look, we all joke and laugh about it. And when I was saying the Enzo, Jonjo thing, Enzo could go on to have a better career and stuff. But what I was talking about is the player quality.
The skill set.
It's not that different. Like, it's at the elite level. There's fine margins which make somebody this and what makes somebody that. And I think it's gotten closer in today's age. I think the elite players of the past, come on, they were like supernatural. Like,
but it was also like the lower players at the bottom were
like as much as I love Paulo Aimar. But I'm sorry, the gap between him and Zidane is monumental. And that's no disrespect. Aimar was a top player. But the gap between the best now and the good is closer than you think. So a lot of the time, that's when system comes into it. That's when coaching comes into it. That's when these setups come into it.
Especially in today's game where it's so system oriented, bro. Like, coaches almost like look at players as like chess pieces. Or like puzzle pieces to an overall puzzle. So the puzzle is interchangeable, but you need to have the exact certain skill set to be able to plug in place. I love the example you brought of Rice, right? Because I remember last year, the way we were talking about the DM conversation, who were the best DMs in the Premier League? It was Casemiro, Partey, Rodri. You never, ever, ever heard Declan Rice in that conversation. I don't care who you are. Arsenal fans, you were, maybe you, because that's your boy. No one was putting Declan Rice in those conversations. It was always those three. Declan Rice has now come to Arsenal, where he's found himself now a platform to show off his ability more on a Champions League stage, on a team that's consistently winning. He's now getting himself into better goal scoring positions because the system is also allowing him to do more. All of that stuff has elevated Declan Rice's status. But if you really look at Declan Rice and be objective here, he's not a different player to what he was last year. Has Declan Rice improved that much over the last 8 months to now be viewed as, I'm seeing people say he's better than Rodri now. He went from not even being in the discussion to now being better than Rodri. Yeah. He might have been better than Rodri from the beginning. That's what I'm trying to say. But he's not a different player to who he was last year. The platform now has elevated his level.
Yeah. And then you get to play with better players and stuff. And obviously your coaching is now at a different level. Arteta is in a completely different stratosphere to David Moyes. I love David Moyes, but when it comes to tactical coaching, is on another level. So all of a sudden, you're doing different things. So you're unlocking certain skill sets. We've all known that Declan Rice is one of the best ball carriers from his position in the world. Like statistically, you can bring up SofaScore, you can bring whatever. Yeah. He's up there 1 or 2 behind Frankie de Jong, pretty much in that position, right? But now the difference is Arteta's like, even though Declan Rice has played 6 all season, certain games now that Jorginho's in, Declan Rice, he's like, let me use that, but in a forward position, which Declan Rice did not have the luxury to do, I think, because what? If Declan Rice says, all right, I'm going to go and play, what's Suchek going to do? Turn into Mascherano or something? he's not got that in his locker, do you know what I'm trying to say? So it's a lot, it is a lot of times about how a manager can unlock it. I see people saying it about the Kai Havertz situation at Arsenal and Chelsea. I'm not going to lie, I think Havertz did this in his first season for Chelsea. So when people act now we're seeing a brand new Kai Havertz, I don't think we're seeing a brand new Kai Havertz, especially because his best form has come in that 9 role for me at Arsenal, which I always said was his best role at Chelsea. It's when they start moving him to the right and you start moving him to this 8 and then he starts moving a bit weird. You know what I mean? But as a 9, I always thought he's useful. But the difference is at Arsenal, he's scoring big goals. They kind of feel big, so it's different for a
team that's winning too, and
that's why it's all about. Sorry, bro, it's all about like the perception of it. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, with what you're saying about the Endo thing, it's something that I just think. Going back to what I was talking about, the development, I do think the bigger clubs maybe need to start ignoring that phase because money is so much these days. It's not a. Do you know what? I'm gonna skip this 5 million signing, and then he's only gonna be worth 22 million in 3 years. No, if you skip this 11 million signing now, bro, you might have to pay 100 million. It could be 100 million within 2 seasons. Caicedo went for 115 million. Man United turned down 5 million for Caicedo. We were gonna sign Caicedo for 5 million. 1 season in the Prem, he went for 115 million.
I think the biggest example, forget about even Caicedo, Enzo was bought by Benfica for how much?
I think they made 100 million. No, they made a. I think they made a 90 million pound flip or something like that.
Bro, they bought him for whatever. Let's say 10 million from River Plate. They sold him 6 months later. Yeah, they sold him 6 months later. Cam, forget it. You could make the argument. Oh, Caicedo in a few years at Brighton developer. Enzo did not become a better player in 6 months, bro. He just got on a big stage at the World Cup. He showed himself in the Champions League, and now all of a sudden he's 90 million pounds better.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Where are the teams that are like maybe looking at a River Plate?
Do you think it's more laziness? Do you think it's incompetence in scouting, or do you think it's the manager itself not having the confidence that his system can? Because I always say managing.
I don't think it's got anything to do with
I look at managers today. Because I remember a few weeks ago someone was saying, "Oh, Martinelli's finishing has really improved under Arteta the last few seasons, and like he's done a good job coaching." I don't think Arteta has ever coached Martinelli's finishing one-on-one, for example. Like Arteta wasn't even a finisher in his own day and age. I feel like the job of a manager is to highlight his players' strengths and minimize his players' weaknesses. So as a manager, I think it really should be as simple as like, do I look at a player's skill set, what he possesses as a skill set, and believe that in my system, I can make him look better and make his flaws look weaker? I think that's what Klopp's done with Endo.
Yeah, that 100%. And I think at the same time, though, Endo plugged a very obvious gap in Liverpool's team. Yeah. And I think Endo, I don't know if I'm taking anything away from him, but I don't think his job was that hard in terms of Liverpool haven't got a DM. We're absolutely struck. It's a gaping hole. Fabinho was moving crazy last year. You just sit in there. You just sit in there and do what you need to do, what you're good at tackling, recovering the ball, and he's good on the ball, right? Possession. I don't think he's had to do anything groundbreaking. Liverpool already have the platform. For example, now, if you threw Endo into Manchester United,
he's looking at.
You're now going to ask him to do so much more, right? You're going to ask him to do so much more because we need more. We need something different. I'm just saying that the gap that Liverpool had was so obvious that you just need a 6 in there. Grab any profile. Not saying Endo's taking anything, but grab a profile. Can you tackle? Can you recover? Can you hold the ball?
To be fair,
yes, you can.
McAllister showed that the first few months because he was actually playing.
But to be fair, and McAllister was getting ran.
Endo was more of a natural DM, 100%.
Yeah. So I just think, again, like going back to what you said, I don't think it's necessarily down to the manager, because the managers, let's be real, managers do not have time to be like in River. They're not going to be in Argentina looking at what's going on at Boca Juniors and stuff, right?
But they also have the final say in terms of if a guy comes to you and says, yo, I couldn't get you Caicedo, I couldn't get you Doucouré, but I can get you this Japanese defensive midfielder from Stuttgart who's 31 years old.
A good example of this as well is Doku to Man City. Yeah. So Man City they have Jack Grealish, who's very different to Doku. Jack Grealish's retention, he can dribble inside the pitch. He's not a 1v1 guy at all. He likes to pop it off, link up. Everyone last season thought City need a bit more dynamism on the wing. Simply skill set. Manchester City went out and just said, who are one of the best dribblers in world football in terms of take-ons? Doku. He would have been top 5 of probably every statistic when it comes to taking on, running at people, blah, blah, blah. They grabbed him, they threw him in. Now, Doku's maybe, I think, it's hard because of Pep's first signings, always hard. First year signings, always hard to judge. But look at the impact that he made. You listen to what Pep said. Wonderful signing. Thank you to Checky for this signing, for delivering me this signing, blah, blah, blah. But that's what it was. They needed a skill set. There's probably data. Did you see that video of Omar Barada at Man City talking to Checky about the signing of who? Julian Alvarez, right? He if you saw the process of it, like what he exceeds in, what the City team lack in, what he can bring. Like it was like data driven, but that's probably where football is moving to. And I think there's going to be so many people nowadays that are going to be not 100%, but you're going to be seeing a lot of maybe more unknown signings, because now it's a lot of data. It's a lot of data. Who's topping this? Who's topping that? What do we need? Oh, okay, boom. Put this guy in, similarly to Endo, and you'll get success. I think the days of signing the most obvious may start coming to end, because the most obvious is 100 million, bro. You can't just be throwing around 100 million anymore, bro.
I think that's good, to be honest with you, bro. You should really only be spending that kind of money on elite level talent, bro. To get guys to fill a role, you shouldn't spend 100 million pounds on, I don't want to call them water carriers, but players who execute a role that you can really, with due diligence, find a dime a dozen in France.
Yeah.
You're telling me, no, you couldn't find top level, unknown French talent in clubs like Lens, or it's baffling to me. But I think, to be honest with you, it's actually crazy, right? The biggest takeaway from this Wataru Endo explosion at Liverpool is that I don't think we can let Marcus Rashford go to those kinds of clubs, bro. Because when you talk about how important now systems and coaches are at getting the best out of a player's skill set and minimizing a player's flaw, that's when you look at, for me, a player that I really believe has a lot of talent in Rashford. And it goes back to what we were saying. I would feel so uncomfortable to send him to a system like that, or a coach like that.
I mean, I've said this before, like if I can do like the players that I want to keep, I've got like 6 definite names. And then Rashford has always been like, floating around a bit, because it's nothing with Rashford. It's got to do with his ability or his, it's always just got to, for me, the temperament side of things. Like, how can you go so up and down? Like, it's incredible. And eventually that gets frustrating. But I remember I said to you, if there's players that you could sell and you don't mind them going to a rival, then that's fine. But if tomorrow Arteta or Klopp said, I want Marcus Rashford, you'll be shaking in your boots.
I'd be uncomfortable. I would be uncomfortable to sell him there.
This is what I mean. So, and you look at his his kind of attributes,
Yeah.
it could suit most teams if you use him correctly. So that's why someone like Rashford is somebody that I would keep in my 7 that I would keep at Manchester United. But again, we hopefully that comes to us, innit? That type of coaching, that kind of setup. Listen, there's always going to be situations that we can say, yeah, where if you put this player in there, but the only thing is, it's hypotheticals. We would still have to see it because I'm sure there's examples of, I mean, you can probably give me some examples, but there's examples of like, we probably thought, oh, when this player signs, like, for example, let's say like a Griezmann, yeah, to Barcelona. You're probably thinking, Griezmann to Barcelona, yeah, he's going to tear it up. No.
That's right. That's a great example. Why? Because, bro, you look at the skill set that he possessed and the system and the role that they tried putting him in. It was like putting a square peg in a round hole. Honestly, you're trying to put a second striker who isn't massively athletic. He's not massively skillful. His best attribute is his footballing IQ and like the positions he takes up. You tried putting him as like a touchline winger with Suarez and Messi who can't run anymore.
Yeah. So that. I guess that comes down to profiling and signing. But there is moments where the only reason I like to stay away from them hypothetical things is because you've seen flops. Like nobody would have thought Varane would have flopped at Manchester United in a midfield with Scholes and Giggs. Like how? I mean, sorry, Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, and Keane. Yeah. You're just thinking Varane behind the. This is magic. Or Varane next to Keane with Scholes at the tip. Amazing. So you don't really know. It's very hypothetical. But nowadays, obviously, scouts and the DOFs and stuff thoroughly try and make sure that these don't happen. But look, the top clubs often don't get them wrong. And that's why Klopp and Liverpool are where they are, because the system, who he is, the way the clubs search for these players is just on another level. And hopefully, as United fans, with our new recruitment, we start getting to that stage, bro.
And I think United fans in general should know this more than anybody, because you look at some of the great United teams that we've had. A lot of them were built up of players that came from relative unknown locations. Like you look at Vidic from Spartak Moscow. Who would have ever imagined that Vidic would come to the Prem from Spartak Moscow and become one of the best center backs in Premier League history? Ever, to be fair, he was at Monaco. He was in the French team, so I wouldn't use him as an example. But Chicharito, for example, at who is he from? Guadalajara, or one of those clubs. Like, I think like the main point I'm really trying to drive home here is that fans who kind of look at, oh, who are the best players in the world, or what does this player have over, using stuff like GA or trophies or what they've done or the form that they're in at this current moment, it's all really circumstantial. And I think almost more than that, you have to think, would another player be able to come into that role themselves and replace the player you're talking about and replicate it with the correct circumstances around them?
At the same time, you can't be afraid. One thing, and this is what you're basically saying, one thing that you do see though, and this is a little bit of a counter to what I was saying earlier, what you do see a little bit too much of, listen, I don't want no one to go to a rival anyway, but one thing you do see a little bit too much of is, oh, if you take this guy, who's going to replace that?
Oh, no, that's different though. That's different.
And yeah, and I hate that because so much can change. I remember when Ronaldo left, people are saying, so who's going to score the 27 and then Rashford scored 30?
Oh, I'm even thinking, who's going to replace the 27 Ronaldo scored or whatever in 08? Or 09, sorry. And then you just switch the system up.
This is what I mean. So it's all about, you can't rue sales too much of that caliber, because as I'm saying, I don't want to keep saying the word system, but we keep talking about systems. It's a system game now. So those are the things that are really drive everything. That's why the managers, I've had this discussion with you before, but that's why the manager's the most important thing nowadays, or the backroom staff, the backroom staff and the managers, bro. We're getting here we goes for DOFs.
Omar Verrata, here we go.
We're getting here we goes for DOFs now, but it just shows where football is going. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's less about the talent and the superstar player anymore. It's more about what you can do, because I said it on another podcast on FCM. I personally think, look at this Liverpool squad, and I don't think this squad is amazing. It's a good squad, but I genuinely think we will have such different lens of it if Klopp wasn't there. That's what I think. I think the squad that he's leaving behind is good. It's not the best Liverpool team, in my opinion. They can go and win the league, and they would deserve to win the league. And I think I've been the one drumming home all season that people are sleeping on them. Stop sleeping on them. Stop disrespecting them. But I look at their squad, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I just don't think when we look back in 5 years without the Klopp lens and we see the squad that he left behind, I don't think I'm going to be saying, oh man, this guy left behind a an unbelievable
He's
team.
leaving
for
behind
his
a
next
couple of
manager.
great
I think
players, but a
it's
lot of them are
decent
probably on
team.
their last legs. Too,
Yeah, it's
to
a
be
good.
honest with you.
It's a good team. Like, but yeah, no, that's just my views on it.
100%. Well, one last question I want to ask you: if you were to replace Endo to go to United and Amrabat at Liverpool, how different do you think both teams' seasons look, or do they look exactly the same?
Their seasons will look the same.
You reckon? You reckon
The same.
Amrabat would have
Man
done?
United's a dumping ground.
So you
Man
reckon?
United-
Yeah. I think I agree. To be honest,
Amrabat, would he do? I don't want to take anything away from Endo.
But I don't think you
Amrabat
are.
isn't. Yeah, no.
I don't think you're taking anything away from Endo by saying you think Amrabat could have had a similar impact at Liverpool.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Endo has done everything he can. Like you can't take anything away.
Endo's
from
a little bit more. I think a little bit better on the ball and stuff. Though I think it's a little bit. But it doesn't matter. They're obviously not twins, so it's going to be different. I think we'll have the same season. Yeah, I think Man United will be a sham. And I think Liverpool will be going for the title.
And we'd be saying, "Who is this guy Endo? Why did you?" Gary Neville would be, or whatever. Mark Goldbridge would be saying, "Send Endo back to Stuttgart," and we'd be saying, "Amrabat, wow, LFC did it again, man."
who's the times that Man United have tried to be shrewd?
Igalo, would you call it?
Nah,
shrewd?
I wouldn't call that. That was.
Weghorst and Igalo, you wouldn't call them shrewd.
Nah, that was
Well,
desperation.
Chicharito was shrewd.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in the recent.
I was thinking Fergie, he loved the shrewd signing.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the recent. There was one that I was laughing at. I was like, the one time we tried to do a shrewd signing, it ended up being such a bust. I forgot who it was.
Darmian was a shrewd signing.
Yeah. There was one. I can't remember who it is. Damn.
Who coached?
It was in the recently. It was recently. I think it was.
Oh, Tellez.
No, not even.
No, but Tellez was. We were trying to be shrewd.
Yeah,
like
we were trying to be shrewd.
He just stunk.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ericsson's and stuff. We tried to be shrewd, and then the problem with us is that as soon as we try to be, we end up being busts, innit? But hey, it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Hey, shout out to Endo. Shout out to the Liverpool scouting team, and shout out to Jurgen Klopp as well too. Continues to show that, bro, a good manager can change anybody's life. Bro.
Yeah.
So yo, this is gonna do it. It's been myself, Lyés, boy CultureCams. Welcome to the what is it? The eye test. We gotta remember that name now.
Used to it, man.
Yeah. This has been the eye test, powered, of course, by BR Football. Go check all of their links out: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Twitter. They're posting all our clips out on there. And guys, of course, comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Algorithm, drive that shit up. That being said, it's been myself, Lyés, my boy CultureCams. We'll see you next time. Peace.